Good morning and thank you for attending our webinar. My name is Tom Price and I'm a Senior Insight Executive at Lumina Intelligence. Today I'll be running through the Foodservice Megatrends, looking at how operators are adapting in 2025. So jumping straight in then, there are 8 megatrends impacting the food and beverage industry. The first being value scrutiny, healthier eating, customization, sustainability, quality-led and experiential, convenience, and finally indulgence. So starting off with value scrutiny then, 3/4 of consumers identify as very value conscious. This is no longer just in terms of price, but also overall experience that they're getting for their money. So when we ask business leaders in the industry which long-term consumer trends are going to have the biggest impact on them, well, on this slide, we can see that economic pressures were expected to play the biggest role and have grown in importance year on year. So this is due to the squeeze on household budgets being key for this. So we know that value is still at the forefront of consumers' minds, and they are being increasingly selective with how they spend their money when eating and drinking out. So operators really need to ensure that value and accessibility are key focus points in order to stay competitive and relevant to consumers. Now, one way operators are achieving this is through loyalty schemes. So consumers are becoming savvy and have become very savvy to lengthy schemes and those points-based ones. So the 10 stamps and you get a free coffee approach to rewards just isn't cutting it anymore. So consumers prefer discounts and price reductions to those point accumulation schemes. Now, in response, operators have developed member-focused messaging and are including benefits from the first visit. One example of this is Bella Italia. So they've got their new app where they're focusing benefits specifically designed with the consumer in mind. So one example, they're offering free dough balls every Tuesday and gamified rewards like a spin the wheel game to unlock special discounts, but on a more regular basis. Another example of Itsu. So they've transformed that app and this has actually worked very well. So they've driven a 200% increase in app-driven transactions and revenue. So they had previously infrequent rewards, which only catered to the most loyal customers. But this has now been addressed, and instead they have immediate incentives. So they've got a free miso soup after the first visit and interim rewards as well. So this approach encourages more frequent visits and enhances the customer experience. So with value remaining such a core psychographic, brands should really consider how to best engage with consumers' evolved perceptions around value. So the next megatrend that has undergone a lot of change over the past few years is health. Now, health does not mean the same thing as it did 10 or 20 years ago compared to now. There are always new sub-trends within health. So the trend has really evolved from focusing on external indicators of health, with people reducing and removing things from their diets in the 1990s and 2000s because they were trying to achieve their perception of what they thought was health and what was healthy. Now, throughout the 2010s and during COVID, it shifted to added benefits like fiber and plant-based. Whereas now consumers are focusing more on internal health and overall well-being. So new trends and natural products are more stripped back, again, focusing on more natural ingredients. Now, we can see this because 44% of consumers say they are health conscious, which has grown by 3 percentage points year on year. So consumer sentiment is shifting from prioritizing lifespan, which means living as long as they can, towards health span. So trying to make their years here as healthy as possible. Now, consumers are paying attention to the nutritional content of food and what they're putting in their bodies with the right vitamins and minerals. And the widespread media coverage around ultra-processed food has also concerned consumers. And weight loss jabs are becoming more popular, especially in America. So brands are jumping on these trends. So Nestle have released their Vital Pursuit range, tailored for those taking weight loss drugs like Ozempic. So when consumers start a new diet, we know that it's a challenge working out exactly what to eat in the right proportions and for the right effect. So these Vital Pursuit products take the effort out by having the right macronutrients and the right portion size already portioned up for consumers. And we're also seeing more products jump onto these trends. So brands that communicate health-focused messaging, who reformulate their products, and who target the health-conscious consumer, they are much more likely to capture consumer loyalty. Now, next up is customization. So this allows operators to upsell to consumers, where consumers can personalize dishes and drinks to suit their preferences and dietary requirements. Now, this can include enhanced or upgraded options, and really is being driven by office workers returning to the city. So what we're seeing is new salad concepts offering totally customizable bowls, and they are doing really well. So on the screen, on the slide, you can see Attis's offerings. So they have 65 different ingredients to choose from, with different carbs, proteins, and veg on their menu. So they had 5 sites which opened in 2024, and customers are really buying into the fresh, seasonal, and build your own options. And actually, a lot of mainstream operators have seen this and are now following suit. So 56% of quick service restaurant dishes are now customizable. And again, all of this aligns with the healthy eating trend, with people trying to include more natural ingredients in their diets. Now, the sustainability megatrend, again, is linked to the move away from ultra-processed foods. So, again, with a widespread media coverage, consumers are concerned about the impact UPF has on their health. And meat imitation products, they've been performing poorly. So we've seen a slowdown and reversal in consumers adopting a strict vegetarian and vegan diet. So in the chart in the middle, what you can see is that there was a drop in vegetarian and vegan dishes that was ordered, but now this has flattened out. So the plant-based trend, whilst it has declined a bit, it's actually rationalized. So it's still here to stay. Now, there are fewer consumers rejecting meat entirely, because reductionist diets are easier than all or nothing approaches, because it's easier to sort of have a bit of this and that here and there, drop out meat in some meals rather than get rid of it entirely. So operators that talk about ethical meat sourcing and decarbonizing menus through plant-based options will resonate very well with environmental and sustainability conscious consumers. And we've also seen, again, new products developed linking in with these trends. So you've got hybrid meat products being developed, for example, by Corn. So they've supplied their mycoprotein for the development of these new products, which contain both meat and meat alternatives, so more like 50-50 products. And they've got clients like the NHS as well. So the idea here really is to reduce the environmental impact of a product by using less meat per product. Say per burger, you've got 50% mycoprotein or 50% meat imitation and 50% meat, so there's less meat overall. Lumina's top of mind survey indicates that sustainability initiatives are the second highest priority for businesses over the next year after employee well-being. So what can we expect to see more of in 2025? Well, operators have been placing a greater emphasis on low and no waste credentials. So as they've got transparency as well in regard to their carbon emissions and product sourcing as well. One example being earlier in 2024, the Hilton Hotels launched a series of zero and low waste menus at 4 of its flagship UK hotels. So these menus were designed to showcase how hotels can join the campaign to reduce food waste by producing great food and great tasting food for customers to try by redeveloping leftovers and food that would have otherwise gone to waste. And another example is Ask Italian, who partnered with Wild Farmed. So they did this to ensure that 100% of their pizza dough is from regeneratively farmed flour. So this brand really claims that since its introduction, its pizza dough has a 50% lower carbon footprint. And this is because wild farmed wheat has lower inputs involved, so there's less sort of carbon emissions involved there. And so these two types of initiatives, there are others as well, that really reflect the broader industry recognition that sustainability, it's no longer a nice to have. You can't just do a bit of this and a bit of that. It's a must to do in order to align with consumer values in order to ensure long-term business viability. Now, the fifth megatrend is that quality has overtaken value as a consumer need. So the cost of living crisis saw that value was prioritized over other metrics. But what we see now is that as economic conditions begin to stabilize, quality is now back on the agenda. So quality is actually now more important than value. So you've got 76.2% of consumers who are very quality-led, compared to just 74.6% of consumers saying they are very value conscious. So priorities have shifted towards more quality-led occasions with a rebalancing of ideas around value. So it now includes more premium offerings being seen as good value for money, rather than just consumers trying to see value as the cheapest product, because now it's about what you can get for your money as well. So some of the ways in which operators are using quality to deliver value, especially to customers, is through premiumization. So this can be anything from incorporating global flavors, promoting British produce, brand partnerships, as well as chef collaborations, because these all elevate the out-of-home occasion. So those operators that are capitalizing on this trend, they're not only focusing on ingredients, but also increasingly looking towards how food-led experiences can create those lasting memories for consumers. Now, one example is Flat Iron, so it gives a good example of this trend. So they balance quality with accessibility. So the chain is well known for its focus on quality beef. So it's recently reintroduced the Carcass Club. So this is a series of one-off events that allow guests to sample rare breeds or lesser-known cuts of beef from the UK. And any consumer can experience the Carcass Club because it's open to everyone. However, there's an element of exclusivity in there because it's done on a first-come, first-served basis. So again, it offers something a bit different with that exclusivity, whilst maintaining its reasonable price point at just £20. Now, fast-growing pizza chain Yard Sale Pizza, they've taken a slightly different approach to this. So they often have iconic collaborations. So they've had limited edition pizzas that generate buzz and elevate offerings. So previous collaborations have been with the likes of Roti King, Ottolenghi, and Bleecker Burger. But its latest festival, or festive pizza, I should say, and festive collaboration was in partnership with Asma Khan. So she is the founder of Darjeeling Express and was featured in Netflix's Chef's Table, if any of you have seen that. So with Yard Sale, by teaming up with the celebrated chef Asma Khan, they are obviously able to merge premium, almost chef creations and chef skills with mainstream accessibility. So this can help to drive quality perceptions and consumer engagement. So moving on to the experiential trends. So from Lumina's EDOP data, we can see that 62% of consumers consider themselves to be very experience-led, and this is actually grown by 2 percentage points year on year. Now, the term experiential has got lots of different meanings for different people and also different channels, but really at its core, it's about leveling up an occasion. Now, one of the ways I believe that operators are doing this is through the venues themselves, especially within the pubs and bars channel. So what really started as hybrid co-working spaces crossed with cafes has now evolved into this idea of a chameleon venue. So what I mean by a chameleon venue, it's one that focuses on creating flexible, multi-use spaces. So by becoming adaptable, these venues not only enhance customer experiences, but they also really drive profitability and community engagement as well. So a good example of this is the Lane Pub Co. So they evolved their formats through new technologies, again to extend the reach and appeal of their offering to a wider audience throughout the day. So we can see this on the slide. So the company recently remodeled the Tempest in Brighton. So they utilize a lot of lighting to create different atmospheres based on the time of day. So this lighting helps create what is known as a zonal tool. So you can guide the type of occasion from a low-tempo daytime meal to a high-tempo late-night drinks occasion. So again, they're catering for different experiences there. And a more recent example of this is Marston's pub format differentiation. So it's a two-room pub targeted at both families and regulars. So they're aimed at creating shared, good experiences and times for everyone. So again, the purpose of this is to access a broader demographic, but through clearly defined pub zones. So again, these things are a great way to diversify consumer bases and also ensure the on-trade remains relevant in 2025. And then the penultimate trend is around convenience. So operators are diversifying formats, as we've seen, to meet these convenience needs. But this is actually reshaping the whole eating out landscape through improving both speed, accessibility, and then finally adaptability as well. Now, in the past year, we've seen plenty of investment by quick service restaurant brands into drive-through expansion. But one new trend that we're seeing is the rise of what would be traditionally the service-led restaurants, but adapting to a more quick service approach through smaller but well-placed formats. Now, Pizza Express is a very good example of this. So they introduced their first Pizza Express pod at Tesco Extra in Southampton. So this pod offers grab-and-go dining options that align with the growing consumer demand for more convenience. So being located in a high footfall area, so that's outside Tesco's main entrance, but still serving popular menu items like the American Hot and Padana pizzas, again with a lunch deal as well. So you can get a £9.95 pizza and soft drink deal at lunch. And another good way of doing this, so customers can also redeem Tesco Club Card points against it. So again, further enhancing that value proposition. So again, overall, this initiative highlights how operators are developing hybrid models from full service restaurants to pods and kiosks, which cater to almost those varying convenience needs, those shifting needs now towards convenience. And then just finally then for the megatrend section. So the final megatrend is around indulgence. So consumers are seeking out products that offer luxury without breaking the bank. So restaurants are really tapping into this trend by offering affordable add-ons, including lots of new and decadent dips that elevate dishes, but also make accessible celebrations more memorable. So something a bit different there. So we can see this in Lumina's data on missions specifically. So consumers are targeting sweet treats for their dopamine fix. So 80% of Brits have a sweet treat at least once a week. So that's a very high proportion there. And operators are launching creative ice cream flavors. So you've got ice cream seeing the biggest increase in share of occasions year on year. So it's grown by 0.9 percentage points. And then we're also seeing that branded dessert parlors have increased their outlets by 5.5% year on year in 2024 specifically. So this is above the total market growth figure of 0.1%. So one example of a brand doing this well is Side. So this is a brand created by a group of YouTubers called the Sidemen. So they launched what they termed the world's first Christmas special. So they had their version of a cheese board. So 3 different cheese dips and a cranberry sauce dip that you can dip crispy chicken tenders or waffle fries in. So again, something a bit different because consumers have a bit more money to spend. They're happy to, again, part with their money a bit more and try something new. So they are the 8 megatrends. So just to recap, they range from value scrutiny to indulgence. And actually, these can all be seen throughout menu trends, which I'll go on to in the next section. So just before I go into this, in terms of Lumina's menu tracker sample and methodology, so the tool tracks 40 operators across restaurants and pubs and bars looking at food and drink menus. So this tracks changes from spring and summer 2023 to the same period in 2024, but I'll also be drawing on some longer term comparisons. And when I talk about the same line dishes, really what this means is dishes that appear on menus across both time periods with the same dish name and same description. Now, obviously, you can have average menu prices which can change if cheaper or more expensive ingredients are added and removed. But with so many menu items that we're sort of having a look at, it really gives a good metric of dish price inflation. Now, to start, chain restaurants are adding more expensive starters and main options to increase spend per head. So these new starter and main items are commonly designed to be shared. So you've got sharing platters to be shared within more social occasions, and again, provide a more experiential occasion within that as well. So you've got Miller and Carter, Coke Brasserie, and Turtle Bay all jumping onto this. And consumers are perceiving these options as higher quality, again, linking in with the value scrutiny trend. Now, one really good example of this is Zizi. So they added their premium pasta range to their main menu, again, to drive average price point up. So you've got the pasta there made with fresh free-range eggs, with a mushroom and truffle pasta, for example, with burrata. Other examples include their slow-cooked beef and Chianti ragu, and then their crispy prosciutto carbonara. Now, these are all very indulgent dishes with premium ingredients, all very rich. Again, sort of highlighting those premium trends, those higher quality that consumers are now looking for. And pub and bar operators have also been adding more premium main and side dishes. So you've got Vintage Inns and Chef and Brewer who now have more lamb-based mains. And then you've got Sizzling Pubs and Slug and Lettuce. So they've introduced new sharing sides that are more expensive as well. So on this slide, we can see three really good examples of this. So you've got the offerings by Turtle Bay. So you get a lot for £31 in their jerk platter. So you've got half a jerk chicken there, barbecue ribs, 2 jerk sausages, rice and peas, spiced fries, and slaw. Really a lot there, so good value for money. Chef and Brewer, well, they've got their take on a classic shepherd's pie, but they've gone for a lamb shank in this with the bone sticking out, which again gives it more of an experience-focused occasion through those striking visuals that you've got of the bone sticking out in the dish. And then just finally, Sizzling Pubs, they've got their Chicken Shack range with chicken starters that come with different sauces, but that depends on the number of guests who are sharing it. So for those who want a different dip, this provides an upselling opportunity, and again, it's also an example of customization. And we've seen that value scrutiny is really important for consumers. So operators have now shifted from left-digit anchoring to drive premium perceptions. Now, what left-digit anchoring means, this is when a menu price ends with a 9, for example, it would be priced at £11.99. So this is done as a psychological tactic to make consumers perceive the price to be less, because the large value of the price is assigned to the left number, so the £11 of the £11.99 price. But again, as we've touched on and as we've seen, consumers are looking for higher quality dishes because the squeeze on budgets has eased for some. So we're seeing more round pound dishes. So a dish, for instance, being £12 exactly or £13 rather than £11.99, because this boosts consumer perceptions of the dish being premium and high quality. Now, pub and bar menus, they've shrunk by 12% year on year, whilst the number of menu items on restaurant menus has only marginally fallen. So what this means is different channel menus are now closer in size. They're all being rationalized. Now, what we've previously seen is that operators have been increasing menus following pandemic-driven cuts, but the opposite is happening now, again, to save money. Now, to continue this on to the next slide, pub and bar operators are offering an average of 6 less items in main ranges on menus in spring and summer 2024 compared to the same period in 2023. But burgers, chicken dishes, and pizza are each growing their share of pub and bar main options. So these dishes are doing well because they're typically classic dishes, but they can also be easily customizable and adapted for dietary requirements. And then more recently, operators have been elevating these dishes with trend-led toppings, and more premium ingredients. So we can see some examples of this in pub and bar, burger and pizza menus on this slide. So one example is we've got Vintage Inn's stone-baked pizza and burger menu. So you've got words like hand-rolled, superb flavour, again, really conveying the quality alongside the ingredients. So they've got Wagyu there in their burger. They've got Woodall's air-dried royal ham, again, all displaying the provenance. And then Beef Eaters, they've got their signature 74 burger recipe, again, listing all the cuts of beef that includes, even bone marrow. So again, bone marrow is having a bit of a moment at the moment. It's very indulgent. So by including all the ingredients and also bone marrow in the ingredients listing, again, it gives an indication of high quality food. And then just finally, Slug and Lettuce, they've gone for a twist on their mayo. Instead of having what would be a classic American burger, again, with normal mayo, they've gone for an Asian-inspired twist here. So you've got miso mayo. So again, this is an Asian fusion for linked to those consumers looking to try something new. And we can also see that global cuisines have influenced Hungry Horse's burger menu. So you've got Mexican, Korean, and American influences. So you've got a Southern Comfort Texas toast on the menu. And again, this is particularly interesting because it aligns with a resurgence in Deep South barbecue that we're seeing. And we can also see the inclusion of branded products like France Red Hot Original Sauce, again, stretching the quality credentials of the range by having those brand partnerships. And whilst everyone loves pizza, actually, we're seeing pizzas evolve to keep the pizza dishes relevant. So you're seeing hot honey, which again is having a moment. It's being included on mainstream pizzas across a lot of the chains. So you've got hot honey featuring on pizzas, new pizzas in Zizi, Ask Italian, and Pizza Hut there. And then these almost new launches, they are more premium than maybe some of the classics standard dishes that are remaining on the menu. So these new premium pizzas are including more premium ingredients like prawns, venison pepperoni, and Rakito pearl slices. So what this means is that where pizza already had a very large share of main dish occasions, this has actually grown year on year, again, due to these new additions and premiumization. So it's doing really well at the moment. And coming on to look at protein, so 1 in 3 pub and bar main dishes include chicken. So chicken has grown in share in terms of usage on pub mains, especially over the last 2 spring or summer menu cycles. So this is because chicken is relatively affordable, it's versatile, and it has universal popularity among consumers. But what we can note is that seafood has lost share of menus because it's at risk of high levels of cost inflation. So including seafood on menus, again, is a risk because of that inflation, and also supply chain unpredictability, which we saw due to the war in Ukraine. Now for restaurant mains, so the protein share has remained relatively consistent over the last few years, but for chicken, it's retained its top spot as the most common protein found in restaurant mains, again, growing share slightly year on year. But pork is also seeing gradual share growth because we're seeing more sort of premium varieties of pork being included on pizza dishes in casual dining Italian brands. And we've touched on this a bit, but you've seen that vegan and vegetarian mains have peaked in share. So we've seen a slowdown in the rate of consumers taking up those plant-based diets and sort of consuming those dishes. So consumers have been switching to a some, not none approach to meat consumption. So where we see sort of future menu innovation in the vegan and vegetarian space, this is likely to focus on quality plant-based dishes that have universal appeal rather than those meat imitation products that we've seen before. So we can see this on this slide. So in 2024, vegetarian and vegan dishes had a stronger focus on vegetables So in 2025, what we expect to see is that veg will be the centerpiece. So you'll have veg as the hero in a dish. Now, an example of this, so you've got Brewdog. They've got their Return of the Veg burger with a quinoa-crusted pumpkin and spinach patty. So previously, this might have been a branded meat imitation patty, but now it's a bit more of a whole food focus. And then Wagamama's, they've got their butternut squash and coconut curry. Again, where previously this might have included seitan, you've got butternut squash or even more butternut squash than you would have had before. So this idea of veg as a focus really aligns with consumer preferences towards whole foods and attitudes around fake meat, because with fears around ultra processing, consumers are almost less inclined to buy these fake meat products, or at least some consumers are. So this links in with the health megatrend, with consumers paying attention to the ingredients that they're eating. Now, the menu tracker tool, it really allows us to look at very niche specifics, like what vegetables are used in dishes across menus. So alongside the most common, I've looked at here, we can also see the fastest growing. So onion, garlic, and peppers are the top growing veg used, and are also the most common used in terms of their share of dishes. So onion has the highest share at 26%. Now, this is because onion and these other veg, they align with the growth in share of burgers and pizzas across the channels. So they're often used in those dishes, again, which is part of the reason why they're doing so well. But really interestingly, cabbage and pickle are growing as well. So this is more of a reflection of Asian influences on mainstream menus. So you've got Wagamama's new range of Korean-inspired fried chicken dishes. So you've got a hot honey fried chicken, featuring mixed pickles with a yuzu sauce. So you've got those mixed pickles topping the dish there, adding something a bit extra. And in a similar way, so we can also look at what adjectives are included in dish descriptions. So crispy and crunchy are classic features of burger descriptions. Burgers are doing well, which is why these descriptions are doing well as well. They also go hand in hand in terms of their growth. But hot and spicy now hint at growing flavor trends for consumers. So consumers are being inspired by global cuisines and are being more adventurous in the flavors that they are trying. So some examples of this. So you've got O'Neill's hot and kicking chicken bites. So it's got a katsu dip with almost crispy onions there as well. Las Iguanas got their mac and cheese empanada with a spicy jalapeno jam. And Ask Italian have got their chicken lecca lecca with a spicy dip as well. Now, another example, so O'Neill's have lent into their Irish heritage with their spice bags. So if you don't know what these are, they are very popular in Ireland. They're often got from Chinese takeaways. But what O'Neill's have done, they've premiumized this. So they've got their seasoned fries, smiley faces, kimchi bites, curry sauce. So you get quite a few things in there. And then you also get a choice of different toppings of both meat and plant-based. So again, it's a great example of almost high quality food, but a good example of customization as well, with consumers being able to choose what toppings they want. And whilst we know that consumers currently eat a very diverse range of cuisines beyond just British, actually the idea of trying new flavors is really even more appealing to consumers. So you're combining almost familiar flavors or familiar dishes and formats with something else. So you've got the familiarity of things that they know and love with a twist. Now, TikTok and social media have played a big part in the unusual rise of those unusual fusion combinations. So one that really grabbed people's attentions, I don't know if you saw this last year. So this was the viral ramen carbonara. So you've got these almost fusion flavors, and where operators are including this on menus, you can almost sort of mix this with the strength of social media endorsement. So you can leverage this social media buzz to sort of get consumers to try the new dishes that are on menus that again link in with these new cuisines or these fusion cuisines. And And then you've got other British classics that we can almost provide fusions for, again, that provide a great base for this trend. So you can do this with Sunday roasts and pies as well. Because we've got examples of this already. So the Tamil Crown in Islington, they offer an Indian take on a roast on Sundays, again with high quality ingredients and a premiumized offering. Another example, so Wagamama's have teamed up with Willie's Pies. They toured a katsu chicken pie in 2024. And then for a more plant-based option, they had their kimchi and edamame and mushroom pie. And then just a final point I'll leave you with. So there's almost a growing focus on breakfast and there are opportunities within that. So everyone loves an all-day classic English breakfast, but there's opportunities for fusion twists on that English staple. So everyone's seen almost egg on top of noodles. Everyone loves it, but it's quite common. We're seeing that everywhere. But what Marugame Udon have done, they're almost like a Japanese noodle concept. They've gone for the egg on top of noodles, but they've also added bacon on top there. Again, linking in with that more classic all-day breakfast or British breakfast that everyone knows and loves. So that is the end of the webinar. So that's everything from me as well. I hope you found everything useful. Now, if you've got any questions, please do get in touch with me at tom.price@wrbm.com. But thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day.